in a move that was not unexpected if you happen to be following this channel. Widely predicted. Just in time, right about that moment, we were able to get Elijah Arroyo into training camp, signed on that contract, no holdout. And you know he's in good health standing, as that is a bit of a worry with him, in that you know he's now good to go. That was not going to bode well for one Mr. Noah Fant. Noah Fant has been released by the Seattle Seahawks today, saving almost $9 million, $8.9 million to be exact, off of the salary cap right now at the moment, which is a significant amount of savings to have at this time of year when there are so many teams that tend to be a little bit light as far as that goes. A few different reasons why this move is being made. First, you have the, I think, aspect of the cost that's being driven into this just a tiny little bit when it comes to the Fant experience, as he signed a 2-year extension that originally came here via a trade by the big Russell Wilson trade and that mighty haul that our Seattle Seahawks got back for him. And you can see here that on his average per year basis, though it is only a 2-year contract that he signed last year, he finds himself 12th in average per year as far as that contract goes, which is a little bit higher than maybe you would like for where his performance has been. And let's not get it mistaken, Noah Fant has not been a bad player for your Seattle Seahawks. In both as a pass catcher, a run after the catch, as a blocker, be it in pass pro or run blocking at times, he's had his moments and some consistency littered in there as well. But there are just those times where he feels a little bit like he goes quiet through stretches of games and through a whole game, or might get a catch here or there. Some of this could be the offenses that are coming from this a little bit, and what's driving that. That's certainly a little bit of, hey, he could probably have an argument to be made that I haven't been utilized to my utmost. You guys didn't try to get the most out of me here. But what does stand out when you look at him coming over here from the Denver Broncos a couple of years ago here, as he got through 3 seasons here, 3 seasons with Denver, is that he was a more productive player with Denver, at least as a pass catcher goes. Now, with the Denver Broncos, I think it's worth saying that they didn't have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf as your 1-2 receiving targets to kind of eat up some of those touches that are out there to be had. But I think it does stand out when you do look at him that the targets got down to a lower state, sure, by 30, but the catches with it went down too. The guy was up 62, 68 the prior 2 years, went to 50 to 32 and got back to 48. 500 yards receiving last year, right around the same place he's been the past few years. And I think a little bit of why John Schneider made this move 2 years ago to sign him to that contract extension was not that he had been lighting the world on fire here in Seattle through his a little bit of time. It was really, I think, what is kind of the story with Noah Fant when you break him down as a player. He's going to probably make it 10 years in this league. He's going to have a very productive career. He's already 3,000 yards receiving. He'll probably end up like 5,000-6,000 yards receiving when it's all said and done. He'll find his landing spot. So he's not, again, a bad player. This is that nuanced place you try to get to on these type of things. But he is a former first-round pick, which we know with tight ends, they don't tend to get taken very high in drafts. And so if you are going to be taken that high, you're looked at as a guy that should be a difference maker. A guy that can tear the top off the defense, a guy that's going to be a mismatch problem on the football field. And he always kind of showed you some flashes of that here and there where you go, man, it's there. It's right there. It's in there. But that same feeling that caused Denver to eventually draw off him and being willing to package him in the Russell Wilson trade is the same thing that has you willing to draw off this, being that $9 million of cap space can just be spent elsewhere better, even if it's a matter of eventually rolling that cap space over to move it into next year. You have a lot of versatility with how you can use this money now, but that's a better proposition than rolling along kind of with where you were. And not because he's bad. You can see here by the PFF rank from last year, 30th ranked tight end. So, he's not top 15, but top 30. It's fine. I always say about 64 is your average grade. So he's like 2 percentage points above what I would put is normally about average for NFL players at their given position. But again, keeping in mind that you're paying top 12 for top 30 performance. And that starts to make these kind of decisions easier for guys like John Schneider when you are entering into the final year of your deal. And basically all of the money that we get to cut out from under you, we get to save. There's a very little bit of bonus money that you eat. But aside from that, you just get to get all of those savings back in tow. And in Elijah Arroyo, you did have a guy that was going to be a little bit of a redundancy there at the position. The tight end is built upon kind of 2 different style of players. A lot like we talk about with the defensive tackles, where you'll have a 1 tech who's usually going to be shaded between the guard and the center to the strong side of the offensive formation. You then have a 3 tech that's going to be on the outside shoulder then of the other of usually the left guard. By and large, this can change by the way the formation can flip. And you want two different style of players to do that. 3 tech, penetrate, 1 tech, hold the position, hold your ground. Same thing is true with the tight end position. They are not all built the same. There has been a draw as you've gone away from fullback. As you pull away from that fullback position, it creates this new thing. It was called an H-back. It's the off-ball tight end. They're a yard off the line of scrimmage. They're just behind the offensive tackle, giving them a little bit more space to work post-snap, not dealing with any sort of bump and run up at the line of scrimmage, especially be with an edge that might try to get a little bit of a hand on them a little bit. Gets them a little bit more free run space. They all likewise don't tend to be, though, your most vicious of blockers. They're not going to get after it usually that hard in that way. They're usually competent. And when you do look at Fant, this is a guy that when you look at him as a blocker, he's here really as much as anything to be a pass catcher. Because as you can see here with his grades going even all the way back to Denver, far beyond a sample size, he's not a real great pass protector. Like I said, he could give you some flashes in that, but not a lot of consistency within that. And as a run blocker, he was only marginally better. This is, though, kind of part of the institution of the H-back. This is going to be a little bit of some of the similarities I think you'll see in Elijah Arroyo's grades as a blocker as well. You're not having those guys in there essentially to be A1 grade A blockers. You'd love to have it if you could. You certainly would, but it's not necessarily where they're going to make their money, so to speak. So if you're not going to run block, you got to be then a grade A pass catcher. You got to be dynamic with the ball after the catch. And as of course we did get to see with a guy like Noah Fant, those moments were just too few and far between where we couldn't run them together enough consistently to really tap into that really great potential that he still, I think, has inside him if he can just find his way. But this is where you got the redundancy on the roster. You have usually 2 to 3 tight ends you're going to keep on the roster. And if you're going to keep 3, 2 of them are typically, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but it's a real pretty solid rule throughout NFL. 2 of those tight ends are going to typically be inline tight ends. Guys that can get on the line of scrimmage, put their hand in the dirt, and get after it. So you only are going to carry 1 H-back guy. That's it. And this does get further a little bit muddled when you consider the fact that Robbie Oots is on this roster as a fullback, and you may be pulling from the tight end position and only carrying 2 this year. I don't think that's what they're going to do with this, but it's very possible, especially in lieu of this release now. And so this is part of the stickiness we talked about last week about the roster construction now, and the finite amount of roster space you have to kind of fill in that construction. And you got to pull from here and pull from here and grab from here and tear from here and then add over here. And then you just barely get under the wire with enough guys on your roster to get there to game day. And this is a little bit of what's also driving this a little bit. But the H-back position is one you just need 1 on the roster. A.J. Barner is your inline guy. I think you'd only be having another inline guy here if you're going to keep somebody else on the roster as that 3rd tight end. This also then made Noah Fant just a little bit expendable.